My name is Callum Fraser. I'm 35 years old, and I live in Calgary, Alberta. For the past decade, I've worked as a senior operations manager for a mid-sized logistics company. My job taught me patience, attention to detail, and the importance of documentation. I never imagined those skills would save me from the biggest mistake of my life. 3 hours before my wedding, I was supposed to be the happiest man alive. The venue was ready, guests were arriving, and everything seemed perfect. Annika Leclerc, my fiancée of 2 years, was at the salon with her bridesmaids. I was at our apartment with 2 close friends, Jake and Martin. We'd come back to grab the handwritten vows from our bedroom. Annika had picked out special cream-colored paper with a subtle texture for them. The guys waited in the living room while I headed upstairs. As I walked past our home office, I noticed the computer was still on. I'm methodical about turning things off. Waste of electricity. Waste of money. I stepped in to shut it down. That's when I saw it. The email account was open, Annika's account. I wasn't snooping. The screen was right there, impossible to miss. A conversation thread was displayed, messages between her and someone named David. The entire exchange was visible without scrolling. The preview pane showed the last several messages. My eyes caught phrases that made my stomach drop. Then I saw the attachment. A photo. The 2 of them together, smiling. From her last business trip to Vancouver 3 weeks ago. If you enjoy stories of cold-blooded revenge and gripping plot twists, like this video and subscribe to the channel now. There are brand new, unreleased stories here every day, each one more intense than the last. I didn't scroll, I didn't click into other emails. What was displayed on that single screen was enough. The messages were clear. Annika was telling this David guy that she had no intention of leaving me. It was just an affair that would end after the wedding. She wrote it plainly, almost casually. Once I'm married, we'll need to cool things off for a while. Callum's a good guy, stable. This was fun, but I need to focus on building my future. Building her future, with me, while sleeping with someone else. I stood there for maybe 30 seconds. My hands were steady. In my line of work, panic gets you nowhere. Clear thinking, documentation, and strategy matter most. I looked at the printer on the desk. It was connected, ready to go. I clicked print on exactly what was visible. The conversation thread with headers, timestamps, sender and recipient addresses. Then I printed the photo. Both came out crisp and clear. I folded the papers carefully, slid them into 2 manila envelopes, and walked downstairs. Jake and Martin were checking their phones. I motioned for them to follow me into the kitchen. "We have a problem," I said quietly. They looked up, confused. I handed them the envelopes. "Don't open these now. At the ceremony, when I give you the signal, distribute these to the guests. Quietly, discreetly. 1 envelope for each side of the aisle." Jake frowned. "What's going on, man?" "Trust me," I said. "Just do it after I say what I need to say at the altar." They exchanged glances. 15 years of friendship. They nodded. "Yeah, we got you," Jake said. I grabbed the vows from the bedroom. They felt meaningless now. Just words on expensive paper. We left and headed to the venue. The drive took 20 minutes. I didn't say much. The ceremony was set for 4 in the afternoon. The venue was a beautiful heritage building downtown, exposed brick and high ceilings. About 120 guests filled the seats. I stood at the altar in my tuxedo, waiting. The music started. Annika appeared at the end of the aisle, stunning in her white dress. Everyone stood. She walked toward me with that confident smile I'd fallen for 2 years ago. When she reached me, she handed her bouquet to her maid of honor and took my hands. Her eyes were bright, excited. The officiant began the ceremony. Finally, we reached the vows. Annika went first. She spoke beautifully about our future, about trust and loyalty, about how lucky she felt to have found me. Every word was a knife. When she finished, people dabbed at their eyes. It was a perfect performance. Then it was my turn. I looked at Annika. Her eyes were expectant, waiting for me to match her eloquence. The room was silent except for the occasional sniffle from emotional guests. "Annika," I began, my voice steady. "When we started this journey together, I believed we shared the same values. Honesty, loyalty, respect. Those are the foundations of any real partnership. She smiled, squeezing my hands. She had no idea what was coming. But I've learned something important today, I continued. I've learned that not everyone means what they say. Not everyone honors their commitments. And sometimes the person standing right in front of you isn't who you thought they were. Her smile faltered. Confusion flickered across her face. So when you ask me if I take you to be my lawfully wedded wife, my answer is no. I don't. The room erupted in gasps. Annika's mouth dropped open. What? She whispered. Callum, what are you doing? I'm doing what I should have done the moment I discovered the truth, I said calmly. I found your email account open this afternoon. The conversation with David, the photos from Vancouver, the messages where you explicitly stated you planned to continue seeing him and end it after our wedding, where you called me stable and said you needed to focus on building your future with my resources. Her face went pale. I didn't go looking for this, Annika. It was right there on the screen, and I documented everything. I released her hands and nodded to Jake and Martin. They stood and began moving through the crowd, handing out the envelopes. Guests opened them, confused at first, then shocked. The rustling of paper filled the space, then silence. Dead silence. No, Annika said, her voice rising. No, that's not. You're taking it out of context. Callum, please. The email headers show the date and time, I said, addressing the crowd. 3 weeks ago, during her supposed business conference in Vancouver. The timestamps don't lie, neither does the photo. I turned to the officiant. I apologize for wasting your time today. There won't be a wedding. Then I addressed the guests. I'm sorry you came all this way. The reception is paid for, so please stay and enjoy the food and drinks. But I won't be joining you. Annika grabbed my arm. You can't humiliate me like this in front of everyone. I looked at her directly. I can, and I did. You made your choices, Annika. You risked everything for an affair you planned to hide from me for our entire marriage. I'm simply making sure everyone knows who you really are before I legally bind myself to you. Her mother rushed forward, face red with anger. How dare you embarrass my daughter like this? I'm not the one who should be embarrassed, I replied evenly. I'm not the one who cheated. I found evidence of infidelity hours before making a lifelong commitment. What would you have had me do? Pretend I didn't see it? The evidence was in everyone's hands. There was no room for denial. My own mother approached me. Callum, are you all right? I'm fine, Mom, I said. I need to go take care of some things. Can you and Dad handle the explanations here? She squeezed my shoulder. Of course, you do what you need to do. I walked down the aisle past the stunned guests. Some reached out to pat my back. Others just stared. Jake and Martin fell in step beside me as we exited. Outside, the September air was cool and refreshing. It was only 4:30. This was supposed to be the beginning of my married life. Instead, it was the end of a relationship I'd invested 2 years in. That was intense, Jake said as we reached my car. You okay? Getting there, I replied. Thanks for having my back. I got in my car and drove straight to my lawyer's office. I'd called him on the way to the venue. He was expecting me. Richard Torres had handled my prenuptial agreement 6 months ago. Annika hadn't been thrilled about signing it, but I'd insisted. Now I was grateful. Richard met me in his office. Callum, I got your message. I pulled your file. Good, I said. I need to know exactly what steps to take to protect myself legally. He nodded. First, the good news. You're not married, so there's no divorce to file for. The marriage license is void since the ceremony wasn't completed. You'll want to notify the registry office Monday morning, but you're in the clear. What about shared assets? You don't have any joint accounts or shared property. The apartment is in your name only. Is that still accurate? Yes. She moved in a year ago, but nothing's in both our names. Perfect. I'd recommend changing your locks immediately. If she has keys, you don't want any surprises. I nodded, already planning on it. The documentation you gathered today is your insurance policy if she tries to claim anything or make trouble. We went over more details, canceling shared subscriptions, removing her as a beneficiary from my insurance policies. By the time I left Richard's office at 6 p.m., I had a clear action plan. I drove to a hardware store and bought new locks for my apartment. Then I stopped by my parents' house. My father pulled me into a hug. "I'm proud of you, son. That took guts." We sat, and they filled me in on what happened after I left. Annika had fled the venue with her bridesmaids and mother. Most guests had stayed for the reception, and the general consensus was that I'd done the right thing. My mother brought me tea. "Your Uncle Tom said you handled it with more dignity than most people could manage." I smiled slightly. The evidence was more devastating than anything I could have said or done. "What happens now?" my father asked. "I secure my apartment, cancel the honeymoon, and move forward," I said. "The Cancun resort should refund most of it. The venue was paid in full, non-refundable, but that's a small price for avoiding a bigger mistake." I spent the night at my parents' house. Sunday morning, I returned to my apartment with my father and Jake. We changed all the locks. While we worked, my phone buzzed constantly. Messages from Annika, her mother, her friends. I didn't read most of them. The few I glanced at ranged from apologetic to accusatory to threatening legal action. I forwarded the threatening ones to Richard. He responded, "Standard panic response. She has no legal standing." By Monday morning, I was back at work. My boss, Patricia Hernandez, called me into her office. "Callum, I heard what happened this weekend," she said. "How are you holding up?" "I'm all right," I replied. "Ready to focus on work." She studied me. "If you need time off, we can arrange it." "Honestly, staying busy is better for me right now." She nodded. "Understood. But for what it's worth, you did the right thing. Better to find out before the marriage than after." Work was a welcome distraction. We had a major shipment coordination project for a client in Edmonton. My colleagues were supportive but not intrusive. The following week, Annika's mother called. "Callum, we need to talk," she said, about giving Annika another chance. I kept my voice level. "I found proof of ongoing infidelity hours before our wedding. She wasn't sorry she did it. She was sorry she got caught. There's a difference. She's devastated. That's a consequence of her choices, not mine. You're being cruel." "No, Mrs. Leclerc, I'm being rational. Your daughter betrayed my trust in the worst possible way. I simply made sure everyone knew the truth before I legally committed to someone who didn't respect me." I hung up before she could respond. A few days later, I contacted Annika directly via email. Short and professional. "You have until Saturday, October 5th to collect your belongings from the apartment. I'll have 2 witnesses present. 3-hour window. Bring boxes and assistants. Respond with your preferred time between 10 a.m. and 5 p.m. She replied within an hour. "Saturday at 2 p.m., I'll bring my brother." Her brother Marcus was decent enough. I confirmed the time and copied Richard on the email chain. That Friday, I received a message on LinkedIn from someone named David Brennan. The profile picture matched the guy from the photo. I declined and blocked him. Whatever he wanted to say, I didn't need to hear it. Saturday arrived. I'd asked Jake and my father to be the witnesses. Annika's things were mostly in the bedroom closet and bathroom. I'd boxed up a few items that were clearly hers and organized everything near the front door. At exactly 2 p.m., the buzzer rang. Annika arrived with Marcus and another guy. Marcus nodded at me, his expression carefully neutral. "Thanks for being reasonable about this," he said quietly. "Of course," I replied. Annika wouldn't look at me. Her eyes were puffy, her face drawn. They worked efficiently, packing up her belongings. The atmosphere was tense but professional. After about 90 minutes, they'd loaded everything into Marcus's truck. Annika stood in the doorway holding her keys. She placed them on the entry table. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice barely audible. "I never meant for it to go this far." I looked at her directly. "You meant every bit of it until you got caught. That's the difference. You weren't sorry for betraying me. You were sorry I found out." Her eyes welled up. "That's not fair. Neither was what you did to me. But we both have to live with our choices now. Goodbye, Annika." Marcus touched her shoulder gently, steering her toward the elevator. My father closed the door behind them. "Well handled," he said. In the weeks that followed, life gradually returned to a new normal. I canceled the honeymoon, getting back about 70% of what I'd paid. The catering had a cancellation clause that refunded half. All told, I was out about $8,000, which stung but wasn't catastrophic. I made $115,000 a year. I'd recover. Work remained steady through October and into November. I took on extra projects, partly to stay busy and partly to position myself well for the annual review cycle. Patricia noticed and commented favorably. I also started running again, 3 miles every morning before work. It cleared my head and gave me energy. My friends rallied around me. Jake invited me to a Flames game in late October. We grabbed beers afterward, talking about sports, work gossip, plans for the holidays. It felt good to just exist without drama. "You seem like you're doing okay," Jake said. "I am," I replied. "Honestly, I feel lighter than I have in months." In early November, I ran into one of Annika's former co-workers at a coffee shop downtown. Jennifer. "Callum, hi," she said. "How are you doing?" "I'm well, thanks." "Listen, I just wanted to say I thought what you did took a lot of courage. You made sure the truth came out. I appreciate that. It wasn't about punishing her. It was about protecting myself and making sure everyone understood why I couldn't go through with it." She nodded. "For what it's worth, I think most people got that." She paused. After word got around, a few of us who worked with her weren't entirely surprised. There were always little inconsistencies in her stories about business trips. Her words validated something I'd suspected. The signs had probably been there all along. As November turned to December, I'd settled into a comfortable routine. Work, exercise, time with friends and family. I'd even started dating casually. Nothing serious, just coffee or dinner. It felt strange at first, but also freeing. Christmas was quiet but pleasant. I spent it with my parents and my younger sister, who flew in from Toronto. My sister pulled me aside at one point. "You seem happy," she observed. "Happier than you were before the wedding, even." "I think I am," I admitted. "Turns out removing toxic people from your life does wonders for your mental health." She laughed. Who knew? The new year brought changes at work. Patricia announced her retirement in January, effective at the end of March. The company began searching for her replacement, and I was encouraged to apply. I'd been with the organization for 10 years, worked my way up from logistics coordinator to senior operations manager, and had a strong track record. Why not? The interview process was rigorous. 3 rounds, including a presentation to the executive team. In early March, I got the call. I'd been selected as the new director of operations, effective April 1st. The position came with a salary bump to $145,000 annually, plus performance bonuses. My father took me out to dinner to celebrate. "This is what happens when you focus on what matters," he said, raising his glass. "You built something real instead of chasing distractions." He was right. The past 6 months had taught me the value of clarity and priorities. I'd eliminated the noise, the drama, the relationship that was draining me without my fully realizing it. In late March, I heard that Annika had left Calgary, moved to Toronto for a fresh start. I felt nothing about it. No satisfaction, no sadness, just indifference. She was part of a past I'd moved beyond. April brought warmer weather and my new role. The transition was smooth. My first major initiative was streamlining our vendor relationships, consolidating contracts to reduce costs without sacrificing quality. By June, we'd cut operational expenses by 12% while improving delivery times. I also started mentoring junior staff. 2 younger managers showed real potential. I made it a point to give them opportunities to lead projects and present to clients. Watching them grow reminded me of my own trajectory. Summer weekends were spent hiking in the Rockies with friends, catching Stampeders games, and occasionally going on dates. I met someone interesting in July, a teacher named Claire who shared my love of hiking and craft beer. We went out a few times, but ultimately decided we were better as friends. No drama, no hard feelings, just 2 adults communicating honestly. In August, Jake got engaged to his longtime girlfriend, Rebecca. At the engagement party, Jake pulled me aside. "I know this might be weird, given everything that happened with you and Annika," he said, "but I'd like you to be my best man." "I'd be honored," I replied without hesitation. "Your relationship with Rebecca is nothing like what I had with Annika. You two actually communicate. You respect each other. That's what matters." As fall approached, I reflected on where I'd been a year ago. September 2024, I'd been weeks away from marrying someone who didn't value me. I'd been so focused on the wedding that I'd missed the signs. Or maybe there hadn't been obvious signs until that moment in the office when I saw the truth displayed on a computer screen. Either way, finding those emails had been the best thing that could have happened to me. It was brutal and painful, yes, but it was also clarifying. It forced me to make a choice in real time, with perfect information, and I'd made the right one. The public nature of the revelation had been necessary. If I'd simply called off the wedding privately, Annika would have controlled the narrative. She would have painted herself as the victim. The guests would have sympathized with her, and I would have dealt with questions and judgment for months. Instead, I'd presented facts, email headers, timestamps, photographs, objective evidence that required no interpretation. People could draw their own conclusions. Some thought I was harsh, most thought I was justified. But everyone understood why I'd done what I'd done. I didn't regret it for a second. In September 2025, exactly a year after the almost wedding, I took myself out to dinner at a nice steakhouse downtown, River Cafe, overlooking the Bow River. I ordered a ribeye and a glass of good red wine. I sat alone, enjoying the meal and the view, feeling completely at peace. My phone buzzed with a text from my sister. "Happy anniversary of the best decision you ever made." I smiled and replied, "Thanks." Celebrating it properly. As I finished my meal, I thought about the lessons I'd learned. Trust your instincts. Protect yourself legally. Document everything. Don't let emotion override logic. Value yourself enough to walk away from people who don't respect you. And when you discover the truth, act on it decisively, even if it's uncomfortable. I'd built a good life in the year since that September day. A better career, stronger friendships, clearer priorities. I dated a bit, traveled some, invested in myself. I was open to finding a real partner eventually, someone who shared my values and treated relationships with the seriousness they deserved. But I wasn't in a hurry. I was content as I was. The waiter brought the check. I paid, left a generous tip, and walked out into the cool September evening. The city lights reflected off the river, and the air smelled like autumn, crisp and full of possibility. 3 hours before my wedding, I'd found proof that the woman I was about to marry had been betraying me. In that moment, I could have ignored it, rationalized it, or confronted her privately. Instead, I'd chosen to act with clarity and purpose. I documented the truth, canceled the marriage publicly, and protected myself legally. People called it revenge. I called it self-respect. The aftermath had been messy and uncomfortable, but it had also been liberating. I'd removed a toxic person from my life before she could do more damage. I'd shown everyone, including myself, that I valued integrity over convenience. A year later, I had zero regrets. Annika was somewhere in Toronto, living her life. I was in Calgary, living mine. We'd both moved on, but I'd moved on with my dignity intact. That's the thing about revenge or justice or whatever you want to call it. When it's done right, it's not about hurting the other person. It's about protecting yourself and ensuring the truth is known. It's about making sure that when you walk away clean. I got in my car and drove home to my apartment. The locks had long since been changed, and every trace of Annika was gone. The space was entirely mine, filled with things I'd chosen and memories I'd made since. I poured myself a bourbon, neat, and stood by the window looking out at the city. Tomorrow I'd go to work, continue leading my team, and keep building the life I wanted. Next weekend I'd hike Johnston Canyon with Jake and Martin. In October, I'd stand beside Jake as his best man and watch him marry someone who actually deserved him. Life was good. Not perfect, but honest. And after everything I'd been through, honest was exactly what I needed. The phrase cold-blooded revenge didn't quite capture what I'd done. Cold-blooded implies cruelty, a desire to cause pain for its own sake. What I'd executed was something different, strategic self-preservation. I'd use the tools at my disposal, evidence, witnesses, legal protection, to exit a doomed situation with minimal damage to myself. If that looked like revenge to outside observers, so be it. I knew the truth. I'd simply refuse to be made a fool of. I'd refuse to marry someone who didn't respect me. And I'd made sure everyone understood exactly why I'd made that choice. In the end, the best revenge wasn't elaborate or vindictive. It was living well, building a life I was proud of, and never looking back with regret. Annika had gambled that she could have it all, the affair and the stable marriage. She'd lost that bet spectacularly. I'd won by walking away. And a year later, I was still winning. I finished my bourbon, rinsed the glass, and headed to bed. Tomorrow was Monday, another week, another opportunity to keep moving forward. The past was settled. The future was mine to shape. That was enough. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video and leave a comment telling me what you thought. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel, please subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories like this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.